my lovely people, and welcome to Owen's Mind, a light-hearted trip through the contents of my head and the world in general. It is Wednesday the 15th of April. My name is Owen, and here is what is on my mind today. So, happy Wednesday. I hope you're all happy and healthy and everything's going okay for you with everything that's going on. But we're not going to dwell on that today. So, as usual, I picked out 5 stories making the headlines I'd like to give my thoughts on. Links will be in the description below so you can read each article in full and show those original publications some love. So, let's get right to it with story number 1. And story number 1 today comes to us from BBC News. So, Burger King plant-based Whopper ads have been banned. Yeah, so Burger King has been banned from showing adverts suggesting its Rebel Whopper, which is cooked alongside meat and contains egg, is vegan friendly. The Advertising Standards Authority, the ASA, said the chain's claims that the burger is 100% Whopper, no beef, could be misunderstood to mean that it did not contain any animal products. Burger King said it had been clear and transparent in its marketing, but the Vegan Society said it had been a missed opportunity. They said, "We communicated from the outset that the Rebel Whopper is aimed at a flexitarian audience," the fast food chain said in a statement. But the ASA found the burger's social media post about the Rebel Whopper gave the impression it could be eaten by vegans and vegetarians. The post includes a logo saying "Vegetarian Butcher." The green colour palette and the timing of the ad and the product release to coincide with Veganuary contributed further to the impression that the product was suitable for vegans and vegetarians, the ASA said. Some of the adverts included small print saying "cooked alongside meat products," but we considered it was not sufficiently prominent to override the overall impression that the burger was suitable for vegetarians and vegans. When the burger was launched, the fast food chain said it was aimed at those who want to reduce their meat consumption. But again, the spokesman for the Vegan Society said the launch was just a missed opportunity. Burger King told the ASA that it had been clearly communicated on social media and to journalists that the burger may not be suitable for vegetarians or vegans. It also said it had not included the Vegetarian Butcher logo in TV adverts because it was considered potentially misleading. But they explained that the product itself consisted of 100% plant-based patty supplied by the Vegetarian Butcher and had no beef. The ASA said they had added that a customer who did not want mayonnaise could have that excluded from their order. So, yes, they've basically said that the advert gives the impression that, you know, it's suitable for vegetarians and vegans. That is not the case, and that you have to. Certain marketing was very clear that it was cooked next to the regular beef patties, and that, you know, the mayonnaise within it contains eggs and that kind of thing. So it wouldn't necessarily be suitable for vegetarians and vegans. It does seem an odd product. It does seem like they missed an opportunity because Greggs, the popular sort of bakers in the UK, had a massive success with their vegan sausage roll. And vegan, whatever your thoughts on it are, is, you know, the market is growing. So Burger King, it felt like they were trying to tap into that, but not really. It just seems a bit of a halfway product that doesn't really appeal to anybody. Because I don't know about Burger King, but most burger chains will have a vegetarian burger anyway. You know, they have a veggie option. But to make a veggie Whopper, so it kind of, it looks the part, but it's, so yes, it's vegetarian based, but they kind of looks like they're aiming it towards vegetarians and vegans, but it's not really the case. So they're saying it's to fill a gap. It's for people who want to cut down their meat consumption but are not practicing vegans or vegetarians. They're more flexitarians. So just now and again, they might want just to reduce the red meat consumption and have this burger. Okay, fine, great. That seems a very, very small market to me. Because for my mind, if I was going to, you know, purposely go out and have a meal which is not meat based, I probably wouldn't be going to a burger restaurant anyway. I'd probably try and find a more interesting. I'd probably go to a vegetarian restaurant because they might have more interesting things on the menu. Maybe if you're a family going to Burger King and everybody else is having the meat-based stuff and you just want something that particular day, you go, yeah, I just fancy something. I don't fancy meat today. I'll go plant-based, you know, and you go for the veggie burger. I can kind of see that, but that's got to be a small share of the market, hasn't it? I get that it's hard for the company like that because to make it truly vegetarian and vegan, the buns might have to be made differently. You have to cook it. You'd have to have a dedicated area just for it on a grill and dedicated utensils and everything, and dedicated production of everything that goes into it to make sure it is kept separate from anything, any animal product. It's going to be costly for a burger chain. And unless it becomes a huge seller, you might not want to put that investment in early on and having separate grills and separate utensils and this, that, and the other. So it kind of felt like they kind of half-assed it. So there you go. Yeah, it seems an odd one. The decision, if you've seen some of the marketing, yeah, it can. It's if you look at it, if you could look into it, then yes, it is very clear that this is not for vegetarians and vegans. But you'd like to think that an advert, you wouldn't have to research it. You could just look at it and very clearly know straight away whether or not it's suitable for you. You shouldn't have to check the fine print, essentially, which I think kind of is what the ASA was getting at. It's like, yes, some of your adverts were very clear, but the overall impression, and particularly coinciding with the release date, made it a little bit confusing, maybe. So that's it. That was a decision. Burger King said they have been clear, and they have been clear, but they've maybe not overtly clear enough to some people, and the ASA are just saying, certain adverts have been banned because, what I mean, maybe it needs a bit more clarity going forwards. So we'll see if they rebrand it or if they put any further marketing into it, how that is going to look. I think they're going to have to just to avoid this kind of thing in future, it's going to be very, very clear of what it is and who it's aimed at. Because, like I say, it just seems a bit of a halfway product at the minute. But anyway, there we go. Moving on, story number 2. This is from BuzzFeed News. So NASCAR star Kyle Larson was fired for using the N-word during a live stream virtual race. Yeah, so NASCAR, not really a thing over in the UK, but it's it's big stateside, and it's got a big worldwide following. So yeah, obviously races can't take place at the minute, so they're having virtual races to keep the fans interested, keep people entertained. So Kyle Larson, a 6-time NASCAR Cup Series winner, was fired on Tuesday by Chip Ganassi Racing after using the N-word during a live stream virtual race. The 27-year-old from California was competing in an iRacing event on Sunday night when he appeared to lose communication with his spotter on his headset. In a subsequent microphone check, Larson said, "Can't you hear me?" followed by the N-word. Larson's fellow competitors on the virtual race appeared shocked by his use of the racial slur. One said, "Kyle, you're talking to everyone, bud." And another one just responded with, "Yikes." On Monday, Chip Ganassi Racing suspended Larson without pay, and NASCAR suspended him indefinitely. He was also ordered to complete sensitivity training. However, on Tuesday, Chip Ganassi Racing fired him. Larson was in his final year of his contract with the team. It is after much consideration, Chip Ganassi Racing has determined that it will end its relationship with driver Kyle Larson, the organisation said in a statement. As we said before, the comments Kyle made were both offensive and unacceptable, especially given the values of our organisation. Larson had apologised in a video Monday before his termination. He says, "I want to say I'm sorry," Larson said in the video. "Last night I made a mistake and said a word that should never ever be said, and there's no excuse for that. I wasn't raised that way, it's just an awful thing to say." He apologised to his family, NASCAR and the black community. He says, "I understand the damage is probably unrepairable and I own up to that. I just want to let you all know how sorry I am, and I hope everybody is staying safe during these crazy times." Okay. NASCAR's iRacing program is an online racing series that virtually mirrors the NASCAR Cup Series and has attracted a large number of viewers who could witness big game drivers race and banter with each other. He was suspended indefinitely on Monday by iRacing, which said his language during the online race was both offensive and inappropriate. And Larson's sponsors, including McDonald's, Credit One Bank and Fiserv, ended their deals with him before he was fired. Chevrolet also suspended its relationship with him. He finished his career best 6th in the season point standing last year, and he was 7th in this year's standings before NASCAR was suspended due to the coronavirus outbreak. The racing star's mother is a Japanese American, and he is a graduate of NASCAR's Drive for Diversity program. Which was created to attract more minority and women drivers to a sport which has notoriously lacked racial diversity and has a historical association with the Confederate flag. So, yeah, it's unfortunate. It's another one of those things, isn't it? It's particularly embarrassing for NASCAR because he was a graduate of their Drive for Diversity. So it's kind of, the aim is to be more inclusive, and then language like that is used. Now, what I would say is, he should have known better. Everybody says things which they regret. Maybe not to this level, maybe not that word, but everybody says things which, in hindsight, you go, "My God, if that had been recorded, or my mother had heard me speak like that, or my kids had heard me say something like that, It's horrible. People get frustrated and all this kind of thing. It doesn't say the context of why he said it. Just made it. Just if it was literally just "Can you still hear me?" and then the N word. There's no, you know what I mean. There's no context. There's no anger. He wasn't really furious and said it, which again is no excuse. But it does happen. There's no excuse for the word, but it does get said. And as a lot of horrible words get said. You know, in the past, I have said horrible things to people in arguments. You know, and there's times when you think, God, if people heard me say that, you know, what would they think of me? They're taking a tiny word out of my entire life and judging you based on that, uttering that one word. And it's, you know, it can come across as unfair. But in this situation, this guy should have known better, because number one, you're a celebrity. People know who you are. People are tuning in to listen to you. You're being recorded. You know what I mean? I mean, like I say, there is no excuse for that kind of language. There's not. But just common sense, you should know better than when you're out there and people are looking at you. There's a story last week, I can't remember what it was. Oh, it was we had the politician, the Labour politician, who said that Boris Johnson deserved what he got because he was a bad Prime Minister. And she tweeted that. I'm like, okay, number one, that's horrible. Number two, why would you think that wouldn't come back and bite you? You wrote something down really offensive to a lot of people and you thought there wouldn't be a backlash. It's the same here. How could you not? You know, maybe his mouth just got ahead of his brain and it just kind of came out. So yeah, I mean, he was suspended. He came out and he apologized, as he would be expected to do. But you know, because of how he found his way into the sport with his Drive for Diversity program and everything that NASCAR stands for, and the image it is definitely trying to get away from, they couldn't have worked around this, so they had no choice but to, you know, Ganassi had no choice but to let him go. And so it's the right decision. It's unfortunate, but it's the right decision. Yeah, there's just, you can't have these kind of things. You can't have this kind of language. You know, would I feel different if he'd apologised immediately on the spot? If he'd have said something like, you know, if it blurted out and he was just like, "Oh my, where did that come from? I am so immediately," then maybe there's a way past it. However, as with everything, he might have fully intended to apologise, but the chain of events, just like it was with that Labour politician, is you're called out on it and then you apologise. So at that point, even if it's genuine, it struggles to come across as genuine because it feels like you're reacting to the pushback that you've had. The apology at that point feels disingenuous. Even though it may be very, very genuine, he might have absolutely meant it. He might be horrified that he used that word. But because he was suspended before he said it, he wasn't fired at that point. It came across like his apology was a reaction to his suspension, not a reaction to what he initially said. So, you know, and like I say, rightly or wrongly, but yeah, you've got to be so careful. I mean, your mind shouldn't go to a place where you say those kind of words anyway. Let's face it. Your mind shouldn't go to a place where you say horrible, hateful, you know, incendiary things. But some people do. You know, and I'm not suggesting the fact he said this word means he's racist. He just blurted it out there. But secondary to that, even if deep down you have horrible, hateful thoughts to whatever, you should know better than to express them, especially in a public forum. So, yeah, I mean, he's apologised. He's lost his career. He's been asked to, attend diversity training. If that helps, hopefully it will. Hopefully he will learn his lesson. I think losing his job will be a large part of him learning his lesson that you can't say this kind of stuff. And just how offensive that word in particular, that word is so incendiary in its connotations that, yeah, Hopefully lessons will be learned from everybody and everyone will be able to move forward in a positive way out of a very unpleasant situation. Anyway, let's move on. Story number 3. So this is a real palate cleanser. Lovely, lovely story in the Mail Online. So, World War II hero 99 smashes his £1,000 goal as he raises more than 4 million for our brave nurses and doctors on the NHS front line by marching 100 times around his garden on a Zimmer frame. What a fabulous story. So yes, Captain Tom Moore, 99, set out last Thursday to walk 100 lengths of his lawn because he turns 100 on April 30th, but he could finish as early as Thursday. He hoped to raise £1,000 for NHS charities together, but he smashed that total in less than a day. The Bedfordshire-based veteran has captured the nation's heart and raised more than 4 million on his Just Giving page to support the NHS heroes on the front line of the coronavirus war. He told BBC News, "It seems almost like fairyland to think that we started off at 1,000 to a sum of money that's not believable, is it?" He added, "Whereas in the last war we had soldiers in uniform and khaki, this time our army are the doctors and nurses in uniform. They're doing such a marvellous job." So originally from Keighley in Yorkshire, which is not far from me, Mr. Moore trained as a civil engineer before enlisting in the army for the Second World War, rising to captain and serving in India and Burma. Before undertaking his 100-lap challenge, the veteran also had a hip replacement. So Tom and his family set out to raise £1,000 initially, but as donations flooded in, the family decided to raise the target. The latest goal was set at 500,000, but that figure was comfortably beaten yesterday. Since breaking the 1 million barrier on Tuesday morning, donations have continued to flood in. Speaking this morning, Tom's daughter Sophie said, "We have decided as a family we won't reset the target. We feel that we have shown a window into the world of this gem. Now the nation has taken this gem of a man into our hearts. We feel that it's now up to the British public to take this as far as it should go. Tom will continue to walk and we, the family and friends, will continue to support him. This is now in the hands of the British people." So, showing his gratitude for the overwhelming support Britons have shown him, the Second World War captain said, "I would like to say thank you very, very much. You are so kind that it's such a benefit to so many people. You're giving hope to the people who at the moment find it very, very difficult, but we shall survive and we shall get through it in the end." Fantastic. Signing off, Good Morning Britain presenter Piers Morgan said 1 million should be just a stepping stone for the fundraiser. And on Monday, Piers personally donated 10,000 toward Captain Moore's cause and told the near centenarian, "Captain Tom Moore, thank you for serving your country. I'm so glad we were able, through this brilliant NHS, to serve you back and keep you going." He says, "Good luck. I want to get you over the line today. So here's what I'm going to do, Tom. I'm going to put 10,000 of my own money into your fundraisers today. And I hope that encourages everyone watching at home to do the same. Little or small, whatever you can do, let's get over the 500,000. You've got 10 grand from me." The donation meant at the time that he'd raised more than 400,000. 24 hours later, it had more than doubled. The 99-year-old tweeted his thanks to Susanna Reid and Piers for having him on the show, adding, "Piers, I salute you." Fantastic. Absolutely fantastic. So during the Second World War, Tom Moore was posted in India, serving and fighting in the Iraq and in Southeast Asia. He later returned to Britain to be an instructor at Armoured Fighting Vehicle School in Bovington. Viewers took to Twitter to praise the 10,000 donation from Piers Morgan, with one user describing the presenter as a hero. Another wrote, "Thank you, Piers Morgan, you are a true gent. There are no words to say. From a proud and exhausted NHS worker." Speaking on Monday, Tom said, "It's fabulous that people have been so kind to give so much money to the NHS." Yeah, so this is a guy who served his country and now is serving it again at nearly 100 years old. So at the 30th of April, so 2 more weeks, he's going to be 100 years old. And he thought, well, what can we do? What can I do? Let's try and raise £1,000. And 1,000 fell. And then 50,000. And then 500,000. And now it's past 4 million. Because, you know, he's stepping up for his country once again to support against a very different enemy. But he's serving again at the age of nearly 100. It's just wonderful, wonderful, wonderful story. There's a lot more in the article if you go into it about his kind of time in the army and a lot more about the gentleman himself. Do go and read it, but just a wonderful story. Again, Piers Morgan, controversial figure, but you can't fault him here. There's a lot of people who are sort of having a go at celebrities saying, well, you know, you could be doing more. You've got millions and all this. And again, I've kind of argued, well, yeah, yes, no, but that doesn't necessarily mean they've got a load to give away. People have got, you know, different outgoings and etc., etc., etc. But he has come out and said about people whinging about being in lockdown, saying, you know what, there's been much tougher times Britons have had to endure. If the worst thing you have to endure now is just staying at home, then what have you got to complain about? Which I agree with. I mean, obviously, if people are staying at home because they've lost their jobs and that kind of thing, yes, there's worry there. But sort of the celebrities, kind of reality stars, kind of moaning about, oh, I'm going to stay at home in my flat. How am I going to get my nails done? Yeah, that kind of thing, completely unnecessary. So he did kind of rail against that a bit, and now he's kind of put up 10 grand of his own money, going, you know what? So it's not from this morning, although they probably did something as well because they're known for their charitable kind of work. But out of his personal pocket, it's like, here's 10,000 just to kind of, help you reach another goal, help you reach another target. And I hope this inspires other people to do the same. So he didn't have to do it, and he did it, and it was wonderful. And people have recognised that, and people have really stepped up for Tom. So absolutely wonderful. So we're going to finish with 2 stories now, which are odd. So let's go on to story number 4. Story number 4 is in The Guardian via MSN News. A man accidentally ejects himself from a fighter jet during a surprise flight. Yes. So, a surprise outing in a fighter jet unnerved one defence company executive so much he accidentally ejected himself while flying at over 320 miles an hour. An investigation into the debacle in France has found. So there was a 64-year-old civilian who got the most unwelcome ride of his life after the force of takeoff made him float off his seat, causing him to stand up and involuntarily grab the ejection handle to steady himself. Air accident investigators found a series of errors in the lead-up to the incident, including ignored medical warnings that the passenger should not undergo up to 3.7 G of force generated by takeoff, and loose seat straps that allowed him to float up. He also lost his helmet while being ejected. The man had never expressed any desire to fly in a fighter jet and had no previous military aviation experience, the investigators said. And his heart was racing at between 120 and 145 beats per minute beforehand. The flight had been a gift from colleagues, and the man felt he couldn't refuse. So the air accident report published on April 6 found the man had ejected himself when the 2-seater Dassault Rafale B jet reached about 1,300 feet, 400 metres, seconds after setting out from Saint-Dizier Air Base in northern eastern France in March 2019. His parachute deployed, and he had a relatively soft landing in a nearby field, avoiding serious injury. I'm sorry. Before being taken to the hospital, the pilot prevented himself being automatically ejected too, as he was able to land the plane on the runway despite the involuntary departure of his passenger and the loss of the cockpit canopy. Judicial and defence investigations of the demonstration flight were continuing. So, yeah, because when I first sort of read the headline, I'm like, how does that happen? Because the ejection handle is down between your feet. It's a big handle, and it takes a pull. It does. And yeah, what happens is obviously the canopy on a fighter jet, when you pull that, the first thing that happens is the canopy gets blown off so that you don't get fired through it. So it doesn't just eject the rear bit, it ejects the whole thing. So the pilot at the front, in fact, I don't know the fighter jet layout, because sometimes when you're in a training flight, the pilot is actually behind. But whatever, essentially they're one in front of the other, and the canopy took off and the passenger just gone. Because it says he was floating out of his seat and he wasn't medically fit to sustain the 3.7 G. So the positive G would be the force pushing him down, because it climbs incredibly fast. So that's the pressure pushing down on you. What I suspect happened was that it came up like that, so it pushed him down, but as it leveled out, you get a very strong negative G where you lift out of your seat. I've experienced this a little bit in the little planes I fly, not nearly that much, but I've a couple of G. And if you do like a parabolic arc, so you climb very steeply and then push forward hard, you get a floating things, and things can float up off the dashboard, and it's all very funny. There's a famous clip, I think it's just called Dog Float, and there's a camera on a dashboard, little light aircraft, and again they do like a parabolic arc, so they fly up a very steep elevation, then they push down and they level out very quickly, and you see something float up, in front of between the two. The pilot and the co-pilot, and then in the back seat you see a dog, which they took with them, just lift off the seat. This petrified looking hound, like, what the hell? And so that's essentially what this guy experienced. He started to float out of his seat. Unnerved by it, he naturally looked for something to grab onto, and he grabbed the handle to pull himself into his seat, and rather than pull himself into his seat, he pulled the handle, the canopy popped off, and it fired his seat out. So yeah, what they're saying is, I've not read the report, but essentially what they're saying is it was mismanaged. It should be I'm guessing during the briefing, it's like, that thing there with the yellow and black tape around it, don't ever pull that. Really don't. Unless you're instructed to by the pilot. The seatbelt should have been tight, particularly in a fighter jet. I've flown little aerobatic stuff, and you are really, really, really strapped in. Because as tight as you think your seatbelt is in a car, when you go inverted in an aircraft, your entire weight is on them belts. And if they're not tight, you'll slouch, everything will kind of tuck up. And then you lose your kind of optimum position for the rudder pedals and the control stick. So yeah, it needs to be so tight. So it sounds like it wasn't tightened enough for this particular gentleman. So he experienced a floating sensation, grabbed the handle. Again, you'd think this would be covered in a briefing. If you've never been in a fighter jet, you need to know that you're going to experience these forces which you've probably never experienced before in your life. Maybe in a really high-end, a really steep roller coaster, you might have experienced a couple of G. But nothing like what happens in a fighter jet, because they maneuver so quickly. These G forces come and go rapidly. So he experienced this massive positive G pushing down on him. And I suspect, as it leveled out, he experienced the opposite, the negative G, as the climb stopped and he continued to rise, essentially. So he grabbed the handle, like, this is, I'm safe now. And off he went. But thankfully, he's fine by the sound of it. Yeah, he had no desire to fly in a fighter jet, but he's like, well, they've bought it for me, so yeah, I'll go along. What's the worst that could happen? Yeah, anyway. He's fine. They're all fine. The aircraft was managed to land safely. There will be a cost of having to reset the canopy and the seat, because obviously an ejector seat is essentially an explosion. But yeah, the main thing is everybody's fine. So let's move on to our final story. And this is something I've never spoken about before. In the metro, a woman dating a chandelier has her discrimination case thrown out. Just sit with that for a second. Yes, so a woman who claims to be in a relationship with a 92-year-old chandelier has lost the discrimination case against the Sun. Amanda Liberty says her sexual orientation is an attraction to inanimate objects, which has been described in one academic paper as objectum sexual. She has spoken out about her unusual love story in the media previously, saying she planned to have a commitment ceremony with Lumiere, that's the name of her chandelier, to show that my love is going to last. So Lumiere, I believe, it's the candlestick in Beauty and the Beast, I think. Miss Liberty from Leeds was featured in The Sun when columnist Jane Moore wrote an annual awards column for 2019, and she awarded her the Dagenham Award, which is 2 stops past Barking. So Dagenham, obviously London, 2 stops past Barking, as in Barking mad. It's crazy. So she awarded the Dagenham Award, saying she'd married a chandelier style light fitting and asked whether she was dim or dimmer. So Miss Liberty complained to the Independent Press Standards Organisation, IPSO, that The Sun had breached Clause 12 of its editor's code of practice relating to discrimination in the article published in December. She said that by awarding her the Dagenham Award and asking whether she was dim or dimmer, the article was pejorative to her sexual orientation. As well, she said that she was not married to the chandelier, but merely in a relationship with it. So they're just seeing how things go. The Sun opposed Ms. Liberty's complaint, arguing that sexual orientation in the context of Clause 12 covered people who were attracted to people of the same sex, the opposite sex, or both, not people who were attracted to objects. The newspaper also said it was not aware of any reputable definition of sexual orientation which covered objectum sexual. So that was their defence, and it was upheld. So dismissing Ms. Liberty's complaint, IPSO ruled Clause 12 provides protection to individuals in relation to their sexual orientation towards other persons and not to objects. As such, the complainant's attraction to an object did not fall within the definition of sexual orientation as provided by Clause 12, and the terms of Clause 12 were not engaged. The regulator said that it recognised that the complainant found the article to be offensive and upsetting, but added that the IPSO code does not cover issues of taste and offence. Newspapers are free to publish information as they see fit, as long as the editor's code is not otherwise breached. So, yeah, this lady had said that the article essentially it was sexual discrimination, because essentially she considered that the Sun was mocking her sexual orientation under this Clause 12, but Clause 12 is very clearly sexual orientation between people, human beings, and that desire and sexual attraction to an object doesn't count. So she yeah, she lost her case. I don't know if there was a financial thing to this whereby, you know, she's now lost a lot of money. I hope not. But I agree with the decision personally. I would imagine, for me personally, and this is just me personally, if I was attracted to an object, I would have a strong understanding that most people are not going to get it, and most people are going to make fun of it. Just like people will make fun of you for what you wear, for the kind of music you listen to the movies you like, to the way you wear your hair, anything, rightly or wrongly. Something as unusual as this, me personally, I would expect that I would need a thick skin when I tell people about this. So was she a bit naive to think that the paper was not going to, if she told this story or someone found out like this, that she was not going to get a bit of ribbing? For me, the best defense would have been, fine, you do you. This is what I like, this is what I'm attracted to, this is what makes me feel good, makes me feel complete, whatever it happens to do. You don't have to agree with it, fine. I think drawing more attention to it through this court case has probably not helped her, because now I'm talking about it, and I would never have known about this story at all, but now I do, and now you do. So, like I've always said, my worldview is, do what as long as what you do doesn't hurt anybody else, do what makes you happy, because life's too short. So if this lady wants to be in a relationship with an inanimate object and giving it a name and whatever it happens to be, if her and Lumia are perfectly happy together, they're not harming anybody else, fine, go for it, okay? But yeah, I think to kick up a fuss when somebody mocks it a little bit it's a bit naive to think that that's not going to happen. You know what I mean? So yeah, I like to say I hope she's not too put out by the decision. I do agree with it. I think the son was right. Yeah, the whole Dagenham Award thing for being 2 steps past back, and it is crazy as far as the general population is concerned. That would be considered an extreme, I don't want to say fetish, but extreme attraction outside the bounds of what we consider normal in regards people attracted to other people of any gender, whatever, you know. Hopefully we're now at a point where attracted to any gender and any kind of, you know, sexual orientation within humans is the norm. You know, we're not still backwards whereby if it's, you know, same sex that's considered odd. No, that's normal. It should be normal. But this is a step beyond that yet. I think we've got a long way to go before this is seen as, yeah, that's just, you know, that's every day, because it's not every day. So people are going to talk about it, and some people are going to talk about it in a mocking or a jovial way. I'm not going to get into, it would be very easy at this point, and it would have been very easy for the Sun to put all kinds of further things in there about how do they do this and how do they do that, and you know, they could have gone into they could have really mocked the kind of the mechanics of this relationship, and they didn't. So, you know, I mean, they could have gone a lot further with it. They didn't. They just kind of said, and this was Jane Moore's column, so it was maybe just her personal opinion. It was like, I think this. So anyway, there we go. So that's it, guys. Links to all the stories I've discussed can be found in the description below, so feel free to go and check them out. Let me know what you think about this video, and just tell me some good news. No questions today, just like what's positive to you during everything that's going on. Just a little bit of, you know, I've done this, or for the first time I've done this, or I've reconnected with this person because I've not seen them in a while, I've got time at hands. Just something positive, something buoyant, just to keep the mood nice and light with what's going on. Anyway, answers in the comments, please, along with your thoughts you'd like to share. These are mine. They're not necessarily important. They're not necessarily right or wrong. They're just what was on my mind. So until next time, bye for now.